Hi everyone, welcome to Project Rosalind. If you're new to Project Rosalind, we're a student-led organization that aims to promote science education for elementary and middle school students. You can find out more about us at our website, projectrosalind.weebly.com. In this video, we'll be learning about the different organelles inside of cells. Before we get started, please take a moment and visit the Google form link in the description box below to take a pre-video quiz. The results are completely anonymous, and they will help us understand how effective our videos are. Let's get started. Let's start off by taking a look at what cells are. Cells are known as the basic unit of life because they are the smallest unit of a living thing and can act as building blocks for larger organisms. All living things, from plants to animals to even tiny microscopic bacteria, are all made out of cells. However, if we zoom into a cell, we can find that the cells themselves are actually made of many different components. The parts that make up a cell are known as organelles, and the different organelles that can be found in a cell depend on what type of cell it is. So, before we get into the different types of organelles, let's first learn about the types of cells. All cells can be classified as prokaryotes or eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are usually smaller than eukaryotes, and they don't have membrane-enclosed organelles, like the nucleus, mitochondria, and endoplasmic reticulum. We'll talk about what these are later in the video. On the other hand, eukaryotic cells include plants, animals, fungi, and protozoa, which are single-celled organisms. Today, when we talk about eukaryotes, we're mostly going to be focusing on animal and plant cells. With that, let's get into the different organelles. All prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells have a plasma membrane, genetic material, ribosomes, and cytosol. The plasma membrane, which is also known as the cell membrane, helps separate the inside of the cell from its environment and regulates what materials get to leave and enter the cell. All cells also have some sort of genetic material called DNA. They also have ribosomes, which are organelles that are used to create proteins based on the cell's DNA instructions. Finally, the cytosol is the fluid that suspends all the organelles in a cell and helps maintain the cell's shape. In addition to these components, most prokaryotes also have a cell wall, capsule, and things called cilia and flagella. The cell wall and capsule are found outside of the plasma membrane. The cell wall protects the cell's interior and prevents it from bursting, while the capsule prevents the prokaryote from drying out. Structures like the cilia and flagella look like thin ropes. Cilia are shorter, while flagella are much longer, but both of them can help the cell move. One thing that's important to remember is the location of DNA in a prokaryote. Prokaryotes don't keep their genetic material in an actual organelle. Instead, their DNA stays in a region of the cell called the nucleoid. With that being said, let's move on to eukaryotic cells, which are more complex and have more organelles than prokaryotic cells. These organelles include the nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi body, mitochondria, and vacuoles. The nucleus is a large spherical organelle that stores DNA. Around it is another organelle called the endoplasmic reticulum. There are two types of endoplasmic reticulum, smooth and rough. The rough endoplasmic reticulum is rough because there are ribosomes attached to it. And since we know that ribosomes produce proteins, we also know that the rough endoplasmic reticulum produces proteins. On the other hand, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum does not have any ribosomes, which is why it's smoother, and it helps produce steroids and remove poisons from the cell. A fun fact you might want to remember is that the nucleus is connected to the rough endoplasmic reticulum, which is connected to the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So these three things are all technically interconnected. Another major organelle in eukaryotic cells is the Golgi body, which receives proteins produced by the rough endoplasmic reticulum, modifies those proteins, and packages them into small containers called vesicles, which are transported to different places in the cell. Now, what about producing energy? To make proteins and transport things, eukaryotic cells need to have a way to make a lot of energy. Well, this is done in the mitochondria. You might have heard that the mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell, and that's because they convert energy in food to usable energy in the form of ATP. Finally, let's talk about vacuoles. These organelles are for storing extra nutrients, water, and other materials. Now that we've discussed most of the major organelles in eukaryotic cells, let's focus on the differences between animal and plant cells, which are both subcategories of eukaryotic cells. Animal cells possess all of the organelles we just talked about, but they also have two more organelles called lysosomes and the centrosome. Lysosomes are like the garbage disposals that break down old materials or food molecules engulfed by the cell, while the centrosome is important for cell division in animal cells. Plant cells lack both of these organelles. However, they also have unique organelles including chloroplasts, cell walls, and the central vacuole. Chloroplasts are used in photosynthesis, and they use energy from the sunlight to produce glucose. Also, just like many prokaryotes, plant cells have a cell wall that add an extra layer between the cell and the environment. Finally, the last organelle that is unique to plant cells is the central vacuole. Earlier in the video, we talked about how all eukaryotes have vacuoles that are used for storage. Animal cells have lots of small vacuoles, but plant cells usually have a single, large vacuole called the central vacuole. A plant's central vacuole helps maintain the size and shape of the cell. For example, if the central vacuole is full of water, then the cell will grow a bit. But if the central vacuole has only a little bit of water, then the cell will slightly shrink. So today, we learned about the different organelles that can be found in cells. Let's do a quick review. All cells have genetic material, a plasma membrane, ribosomes, and cytosol. Prokaryotes also store their DNA in a region called the nucleoid, and they usually have a cell wall, capsule, and cilia or flagella. On the other hand, eukaryotes, which include animal and plant cells, have a nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi body, vacuoles, and mitochondria. However, animal cells also have lysosomes and a centrosome, whereas plant cells have chloroplasts, a cell wall, and a central vacuole. Even though these organelles have a ton of different functions, they all work together to support the smallest unit of life, the cell. We hope you learned something interesting, and please comment any questions you have down below. Now that you've finished watching this video, please take our post-video quiz linked in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and turn on notifications. See you next time!